Hello and welcome to Volusia Magazine. I'm Amber Patterson. On today's show, we'll take a look at SunRail. It's Central Florida's new commuter rail system, and it begins passenger service this month. And it's not every year that one of the world's largest informal education and development organizations celebrates 100 years. Volusia Here and Now reporter Joanne Magley explores the University of Florida Volusia County Extension Service and how the organization plans to serve the next 100 years. And finally, Community Information Director Dave Byron will sit down with Rob Ehrhardt, Economic Development Manager, for an in-depth interview about increasing high-quality jobs and business investment later on in the show. Those segments, news, and more coming right up on Volusia Magazine. I hope you stay tuned. SunRail, Central Florida's new commuter rail system, held its grand opening celebration on April 30th in advance of passenger service, which begins this month. All aboard! Commuters in Central Florida now have a new mode of transportation which will allow them to sit back and enjoy the ride. Members of the Volusia County Council joined dignitaries from across the state recently to celebrate the grand opening of SunRail, Central Florida's new commuter rail system. The whistle-stop tour began at the DeBerry Station, SunRail's northernmost station, and included a ceremonial bell-ringing ceremony featuring a longtime commuter. The celebration continued with stops at each station along the route, culminating at the Sand Lake Road Station, the southernmost station, for the grand opening celebration. 2, 1. Votran, Volusia County's public transportation system, will provide feeder bus service to the DeBerry Station. Votran General Manager Steve Scherer said, as with any new service, there will be some learning and adjustments during the first months of operation.
A lot of people, a lot of commuters are used to parking at the Saxon Park and Ride lot and using Route 200 to get to Orlando. As of May 1st, the Route 200 will no longer operate. Those commuters have been notified through a variety of different ways that April 30th is the last day of Route 200, and they've been encouraged to start using SunRail on May 1st. So people can still park at the park and ride lot. We'll have a bus that'll get them to the DeBerry train station, but Route 200 will no longer operate out of that parking lot.
SunRail will provide free rides through May 16th with revenue service beginning May 19th. The free service is designed to allow passengers to experience the comfort and ease of commuting on SunRail and become familiar with the schedules and cost savings before purchasing passes on May 19th. During the free trial period, SunRail ambassadors will be available at each station and onboard trains to answer questions. They also will be available for several weeks beginning May 19th to assist customers with past purchases and remind them to tap on and tap off the train. For more information, please visit sunrail.com and votran.org. A dozen capital improvement projects to enhance ball fields, provide environmental and historical education, and parks for dog lovers are on the list of 12 grants awarded recently by the Volusia County Council through the voter-approved ECHO funding. Since voters agreed in 2000 to tax themselves for quality of life enhancements, more than 100 bricks and mortar projects have qualified for ECHO funding. ECHO is an acronym that stands for Environmental, Cultural, Historic, and Outdoors. Physical enhancement projects in these 4 categories can seek a 50% match from the ECHO pool of funds. This year's grant cycle included 12 approved projects with a total funding in the amount of just over $3 million. Greg Lafise, chair of the County Council's ECHO Program Citizen Advisory Committee, said all grant applications received this year were recommended for funding.
Those projects had attributes that fit in very nicely in the original referendum that was passed. A lot of those projects that we reviewed and approved for moving on to the county council included outdoor recreation, cultural, and also historical preservation. For an example, we provided a grant to the Enterprise Preservation Society to help preserve the old elementary school that was in Enterprise for a large number of years, almost a century ago. So that funding helped preserve that building. There's also funding that is provided to a variety of parks that are either in existence right now. For an example, in Ormond, there's an aquatic learning center that's going to be added to one of those. There's also going to be further funding for an expansion of Mill Lake Park in Orange City. So a lot of the funding that we've approved this year fit right nicely into the overall purpose of the referendum that was passed in 2000.
The approved list this year includes the Shoestring Black Box and Teaching Theater, Florida-friendly landscape demonstration, Otter Lake Park improvements, Rob Sullivan Park improvements, Karachi Ball Fields expansion, South Atlantic Beachfront Park, Enterprise Heritage Center, Ormond Beach Aquatic Project, Halifax Humane Center Dog Park, Mill Lake Park improvements, Peabody Auditorium renovation, and Central Park Environmental Learning Center. For more information on the ECHO program, you can visit volusia.org/ECHO. An enthusiastic group of pet lovers has proven that man really is dog's best friend. Taking action at a recent meeting, the Volusia County Council unanimously voted to support an interlocal agreement with the city of Holly Hill that preserves the Riviera Oaks Dog Park on Alabama Avenue in that city. Threatened with closure due to constrained government resources, a group of park users would have none of it. Instead, they banded together to form a not-for-profit organization called Friends of Riviera Oaks Park. The park's Friends group has agreed to maintain the park at their expense. This led to the park's ownership being transferred to the city through an interlocal agreement with the Friends being in charge of maintenance. Tim Bailey, the county's Parks, Recreation, and Culture Director, said dog parks are extremely popular and the agreement is a victory for everyone.
Anytime we have an opportunity to work with a Friends group or a group that has organized themselves to try to offset some of the ongoing operational expenses of running the facility, we love those partnerships. It helps defer the costs, it reduces the operating expenses on the general fund or the tax burden. Anytime I have an opportunity to work with a Friends group that wants to enter into an agreement to help maintain some of the assets that they're using, those are very important for me to create partnerships with. That's a great idea, and I like to continue to use those friendships and those partnerships.
The park includes areas for large and small dogs, watering stations, and restrooms. For more information about dog parks in your area, you can go to volusia.org/parks.
I'm Joshua Wagner with the Volusia County Council. If you're going to one of our beautiful beaches, have a great day and come back often. If you drive on the beach, please observe the 10-mile-per-hour speed limit and be very careful of pedestrians, especially children. If you're visiting with children, watch them constantly and take small children by the hand when crossing traffic lanes. You might want to use one of our traffic-free zones. For more beach information, please visit volusia.org.
This year marks the 100-year anniversary of the University of Florida Volusia County Extension Service. This real-life learning approach, established in 1914 by the federal Smith-Lever Act, is one of the world's largest informal education and developmental organizations. Joanne Magley brings us more.
The University of Florida Volusia County Extension Office is celebrating the centennial of the signing of the Smith-Lever Act, which created the nationwide Cooperative Extension Service. David Griffiths is the director of the county's Extension Office.
The system was developed by the Smith-Lever Act to take information and research from the university out into the community to help those in need. And it worked also so that the problems in the community were brought back to the university for research to hopefully solve those problems, mainly in the agricultural in the home economics fields.
The model of the extension was developed in 1914, and while times and needs have certainly changed in the last 100 years, Griffiths says the model is still pertinent today.
We've become more of an urban state, and our areas of expertise have changed. We now cover natural resources, dune restoration work, invasive plants and animal species, entomology, things along those lines.
In the early days, around 1916, the extension would send home economists, at the time known as home demonstration agents, out into the farming communities to teach homemakers skills such as canning and sewing. Kathleen Bryant, a family consumer science extension agent, says years later, many of the homemakers involved with the extension office became instrumental in creating the school lunch program.
I think it was about 1922 where the homemakers, the mothers of the children in the schools, saw a need that there were children that were not getting enough, they were not able to get hot food, meals for lunch at the schools, and so the Extension Homemaker has not only a state of Florida group, but then there was a national group, and they had a big campaign to establish hot lunches in the school system. And that was kind of a big campaign that went through the Congress.
Today, extension agents reach more than 2 million people each year through presentations, telephone calls, lab diagnoses, pamphlets, and other outreach programs.
The term extension does just that. It extends the research information from the university out into the community. That was the model that was developed in 1914, and it's still current today.
For Volusia Here and Now, I'm Joanne Magley.
Horticulture Today's Joe Sewards will bring us information about Florida-friendly landscapes.
Hi, I'm Joe Sewards, and this is Horticulture Today. Today is installment number 2 of our Florida-friendly landscape series. Last time, if you remember, we talked about right plant, right place. Today we're going to talk about watering efficiently. Learning how to conserve water in the landscape is a huge part of being Florida friendly. And putting, of course, the right plant in the right place, which will also help reduce your water demands. So now I'd like to show you a couple of examples of some landscape plants, one that needs water and one that doesn't need water, and how you can apply this to your own landscape, and you can learn to recognize when plants need water. Here's a buckeye, a native buckeye, red buckeye, and you can see the leaves are nice and green and healthy looking and very well expanded, not drooping. So obviously this plant is not in need of water right now. Here right next to it is another native buckeye that is in need of water. You can see the leaves are beginning to droop. The soil is dry. This plant will need water. And sometimes this will happen with plants that are very close to each other in the landscape. And Florida water rules allow you to hand water at any time. So if you see a plant or a group of plants in your landscape that need water, only water them and leave the rest alone. Don't turn the whole sprinkler system on. That's the essence of watering efficiently. So all I'm going to do is water this plant, and it'll recover within an hour and it'll be fine. That can apply to any plant in your landscape. And the larger the plants get, the less and less often and the less amounts of water they will need, because their root system will begin to forage throughout the bed where they are planted. And as the plants grow, their root system grows, they're able to find water in a larger area than they were when they were young. So particularly pay attention to newly planted plants, and as they mature, kind of like kids, they'll need less and less care as they get bigger. Let's talk about lawns. There's no other part of the landscape that causes more grief and generates more questions here at the Extension office than turf. How often do I need to water it? Water restrictions say that we can water twice a week. That doesn't necessarily mean that we have to water twice a week. You want to understand when your turf needs water. The less often you water, the more your grass will begin to become conditioned to those situations. Their root system will grow deeper, will grow farther, and it will be in a better situation to forage for water than when it's a newly planted lawn. So it's the same rule as with plants. As the lawn becomes established, it's able to forage for water more efficiently, learn to recognize when the turf needs water. The grass blades will start to fold in half. It might take on a bluish gray color. If you walk across it, it'll actually feel a little crunchy. That's the time you want to water. And you can wait until your day is allowed. But that is a huge, huge factor in saving water in your landscape, is learning to recognize when your turf really needs it. We've now talked about 2 of the 9 principles of Florida-friendly landscaping: right plant, right place, and now watering efficiently. Join us next time when we'll talk about the 3rd installment of Florida-friendly landscaping, fertilizing appropriately. For Horticulture Today, I'm Joe Sewards.
Volusia County's economic development strategies and efforts are directed toward increasing high-quality jobs and business investment in our existing companies. Today, Community Information Director Dave Byron will sit down with Rob Ehrhardt, Economic Development Manager.
Well, thanks, Amber, and hi, everyone. The construction market, retail sales, real estate, manufacturing, unemployment rate, and so on, all indicators are that the local economy is continuing to pick up a good head of steam. When you look at some of the county's leading economic statistics for the first quarter of this year, the signs appear to be getting more optimistic every month. We're pleased to have with us in the studio today Rob Ehrhardt of the county's Economic Development Division, and we'll get his take on the local economic conditions as we look at the January, February, and March period. Rob, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Dave, how are you today?
I'm great. Hey, thanks for being with us. We have you in
Thanks
every quarter. I really enjoy the update on the economic factors for Volusia County. Like I do every time we start one of these conversations, kind of like to look at the national economy first, the big picture landscape, if you will. What do you see?
So big picture, you may recall in our last conversation, Dave, that we had estimated fourth quarter GDP increase was going to be 3.2%.
Right.
It was actually revised down to 2.6%. Still a healthy number for the fourth quarter. First quarter numbers 2014 are not yet out, but they're estimated to come in 1, maybe 2%. So you might say to yourself, well, is that indicating that growth is actually slowing down? And some might believe that, but I think that GDP number for the first quarter, whatever it proves to be, reflects in part what we don't fully appreciate here in Florida, and that is that there's been a brutal winter here in the United States,
right,
particularly across the upper tier. So on the plus side, we've enjoyed here in Volusia County some benefits from that because people want to escape that winter, and in fact I think we're seeing the tourism numbers are up. So looking more locally in the state of Florida, the University of Florida has a Bureau of Economic Business and Research.
Right.
And Chris McCarty there, if you don't mind my sharing a quote here, said that the recent Consumer Confidence Index for the consumers in the state of Florida, 81, is as high as we have achieved since before the recession began in December of 2007. So that shows that here in the state of Florida, I think people continue to feel very good about the economy. And in fact, this same survey shows that people's personal resources are better than they were a year ago, and their outlook on the U.S. economy going forward in the next year is also on the increase.
Rob, let's focus the lens a little bit down now. Let's look at Volusia County. Again, the signs continue to be very optimistic. You know, I mean, I've tried to get you to say we're out of the woods and on our way up, and you're almost there.
Well, 6.3% unemployment is certainly an improvement over where we were a year ago, 7.5%. More to the point, the LAUS program, Local Area Unemployment Statistics Program, suggests that there are 8,700 people, 8,700 that are employed now. This is March 2014 as compared to the prior year. So
all of that good news. And speaking of good news, if you're into the home building business, or if you're into the home selling business, or if you're moving in looking for a home, I mean, that whole real estate area in the building industry is really, really picked up.
It really has. And in fact, if you talk to some of the builders for the past several months, they've been on the lookout for hey, we're almost out of so-called shovel-ready property for new home construction. We better be looking ahead to see where we might be able to buy up some land and begin the infrastructure development. I'm looking forward to a presentation in the next few days from Sandy Burke Bishop with the Volusia Building Industry Association to hear her comments and insights on what's going on. But certainly the numbers bear out, the permit numbers. About 13 to 14% increase for first quarter 14 over fourth quarter 2013. And as you know, I like to compare the same quarter over a year ago. 45 to 50% increase in terms of numbers or dollars respectively, first quarter 2014 as compared to first quarter 2013 for new construction residential permits.
Let's look at the commercial side of the building permit numbers, Rob. You know, we've seen one permit that has literally broken the thermometer at the top. It burst at the top.
It was awesome.
Yeah. Tell us about the commercial numbers.
Well, that one permit is another permit related to the Daytona Rising project, and it is 152 million. So of a project that's estimated to be somewhere between $375 and $400 million spend by all private dollars by International Speedway Corporation. That's the second of the two big ones. I think there's another one or two in behind that. If you take that permit and just set it to the side for a minute, because that really skews comparison of year over year, that still leaves in the over $65 million in new commercial construction permits. So in terms of numbers, that's an increase. I think the number is 32. That's an increase of about 94%. And in terms of dollars, that's almost 150% increase over the same quarter a year ago.
It's just incredible, and you drive by the Speedway every day like you do and I do, and I don't know how many cranes they've got out there now, but they got a bunch of cranes out there, and they all have a light flashing on the top, and they all seem to be working. You see that steel going up, they're putting escalators in and so forth, so it's a project that's really coming to life.
It is, and I'm reminded that the Speedway has estimated that the amount of steel that's going into that front stretch project equals 1% of the total U.S. production capacity for steel in a calendar year.
Unbelievable. Rob, you mentioned that the unemployment rate is going in the right direction. We see that coming down. You know, how about the wages in Volusia County? How are we doing there?
We recently shared some information that showed that the annual average wage stepped up a point or two, and so over the 10-year period that I like to measure, I think we're still showing increase of about 24–25%.
Manufacturing pulling a lot of that, I guess.
Manufacturing pulls a lot of that. Professional and business services pulls some of that. You know, management positions throughout a number of different industries. On manufacturing, one of the points that I wanted to be able to make here today was I think a lot of manufacturers are, now that they feel much more comfortable about the economy, they're really wading back into the idea of exporting. And I'm not sure that people fully appreciate the opportunity that exists with exporting. And so just to put some numbers to it, there's roughly estimated 317 million people that live in the United States. We think, wow, that's really the base of customers, you know, on the planet. Well, maybe that's true, but when you stop and consider there's about 7.1 billion people that live on the planet, really, put that into perspective, that's about 5%. So if you're only selling domestically, then you're really missing about 95% of the potential market that exists. And certainly as manufacturing comes back as an industry, but certainly back to the U.S., then it's reshoring. What a great opportunity that creates for manufacturers in the U.S. and certainly here in Volusia County. And to that point, we recently held an export workshop to try and expose manufacturers to those opportunities. Maybe they're doing a little bit, but they're not really committed to it yet. So we used other manufacturers that have been exporting and let them share their testimonials or their stories.
I know in your field, the economic development field, you know, you love to hit grand slam home runs, but the likelihood of singles is probably greater than grand slams. But we did hit a grand slam since the last time you and I talked, and that is the Trader Joe warehouse project, which really is the classic example of everyone working together. You got the city, the county, the state, private sector, and so forth, and we've landed a distribution warehouse from a very significant California-based company, going to be right there on the interstate and a big showcase for the area. What do you think the impact of this Trader Joe's warehouse project is going to be?
Well, personally, I think the impact lies largely within the brand. And it's not a brand that's particularly well known throughout the state of Florida, and I would say that's true here in Volusia County as well. But it's they have a following that I've heard referred to as a cult-like,
Right.
in a good way.
Right.
And so as they establish here, I think a lot of other firms are going to ask themselves, what was it that attracted Trader Joe's? And by the way, that deal, to my knowledge, is not exactly or fully complete and has not been fully announced. But other firms are going to ask themselves, well, what was it that attracted Trader Joe's to Volusia County? They may even ask, where is Volusia County?
Right.
And so the more they dig into that, the more they're going to learn what you just made reference to, and that is we're a very business-friendly community, and we're one that works well together. And I think we've demonstrated that not only in this deal, but in just the economic development ecosystem over time with the CEO Business Alliance team, Volusia Economic Development Corporation, the city practitioners, our office, and other practitioners in the area.
Rob, as we close today, any other thoughts or anything that we've missed in terms of where we are with the local economy, where we may be headed in the next 3 to 6 months?
Well, foreclosures are a bit of a mundane topic at this point, but they continue to come down in terms of new filings for foreclosures, as well as the increasing of sales of existing foreclosures. And you may recall, Dave, that Frontier Communications announced an expansion in DeLand. That was back in the first part of, actually toward the end of January, and so I understand that they've fully completed that expansion, and they're beginning to move new employees into that facility. You mentioned the DeVita expansion. We're working with a few other companies that I think people will want to hear, some positive outcome if in fact that's what those companies decide. So again, Volusia County, very competitive, very business friendly. We look forward to continuing those conversations.
Well, Rob, thank you very much for sharing the information with us. We'll have you back in the next quarter. Always interesting to talk to you. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
Our guest today, Rob Ehrhardt, the county's Economic Development Director. And with that, Amber, we'll go back to you.
Thanks, Dave, and thank you for watching Volusia Magazine. If you have any questions about the show, you can feel free to give us a call at any of the numbers you see listed here, or you can log on to volusia.org and click on the News tab at the top of the screen to find us. Incidentally, you can find the County Council's meeting calendar there too. In fact, you can use volusia.org to find out about meeting dates, workshops, topics of interest, activities, and how you can become involved. And we hope you won't forget to listen to Volusia Today. That's Volusia County Government's weekly public radio broadcast. Volusia Today airs every Tuesday and Sunday mornings on the local radio stations you see on your screen. For Volusia Magazine, I'm Amber Patterson. Have a wonderful evening.